Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Horns Report here on KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Billy Gates, and we are, of course, talking about the Red River Rivalry victory for the Texas Longhorns this past Saturday up at the Cotton Bowl, 23-6 over the Oklahoma Sooners. They go into the game unranked and then come out of it ranked number 21 in the latest AP poll. And here to talk about it is KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, we were both in attendance at the Cotton Bowl, and just a tale of two halves kind of for me. I mean, gosh, Oklahoma leads 6-3 going into the halftime break, and then Texas just outscores the Sooners 20-0 in the second half. I mean, just kind of, from where you were sitting in the radio booth, kind of what did you see?
Well, yeah, and the fact that Texas gave up two scores, but they were field goals, not touchdowns, was a big deal because the offense was kind of up to their old struggles early on in the ball game, had trouble moving the ball. Then they found something, had the field goal drive, and then in the second half, it was like a different offense with those two long drives. It helps when you get a special team score like they did with Ryan Niblett. But the defense kept them in it in the first half, and then the offense finally did their part in the second half, and they did all the things that Sark talked about. You see Ryan Niblett with the 75-yarder. They were able to run the ball effectively with Trey Wisner, sprinkle in a little bit of Arch Manning run game. They were much more efficient on third down, especially passing. And then they were really good at getting Oklahoma off the field and not allowing John Mateer and that OU offense to really gash him with explosive plays. And you could see there was celebration, Billy, but there was also relief mixed in with that celebration after the game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because that first half, it kind of looked like they were going to be kind of in that same sort of struggle mode that they were against Florida, like really couldn't get anything going offensively. Defensively, though, like they were still playing, pretty well, like we've been talking about. But yeah, that big special teams play, that 75-yard punt return by Ryan Niblett, that kind of energized the team. Came with about 10 minutes left in the game. Really sort of quieted 50% of the crowd in Oklahoma Crimson. Or whatever color it is these days, I don't know. Is it crimson? I don't know what they're calling it. But a few numbers just from the game. You mentioned third down. Texas 10 of 17 on third down, way better than what they've been, at any point of the season this year. They averaged almost 5 yards a play, which, I mean, you're in that 5 yards of play area. You're moving the ball pretty well. Arch Manning, 21 of 27 for 166 yards and a touchdown. Usually when you're completing more than 20 passes, you see that yardage at like 250 or so, Roger. But Steve Sarkisian did a really nice job calling short passes for Arch to kind of get his rhythm going, something that he had talked about previously in the week he wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, they really didn't take any shots, and a lot of it was predicated on Oklahoma. They had a really good pass rush, so he had to get rid of the ball. He made those off-schedule plays where he gets out of the pocket, buys enough time, and then makes the much safer, higher percentage throw. It doesn't mean they were easy throws. He made a couple where he had to throw it across his body to the middle of the field. The best throw of the day, and Sark even said it on Monday, that maybe the best throw of the year was the one off the goal line on third down to Parker Livingston on the Texas sideline for that first down, about 21 yards. But yeah, he put him in maybe more manageable looks, and then Arch did a nice job off schedule. And there were a few times where he could have tucked it away, and he was patient enough to find the open receiver. And so, yeah, it was a little different looking offense, but, it's amazing how you say you love to see that passing game over the top. Well, you love to see 11 yards on a 3rd and 7 more, because then you're moving the sticks,
right, yeah.
Higher percentage,
exactly,
and everybody gets a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, and we all fans wanted to see last year when Arch came in was for him to rip it down the field because they were, whatever, tired about Quinn Ewers or just it's just fan stuff, right? But against Oklahoma, 15 of his 21 completions, Roger, were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And obviously, when you want to get the ball in your playmakers' hands, you guys on the outside, your Ryan Wingos, your DeAndre Moores, your Parker Livingstons, like you want to play that screen game, that short passing game to get those guys open in space, and that's a lot of what they were able to achieve. Manning only threw, I almost called him Quinn there for a second. Manning only threw 2 passes of 15 air yards or more, completed both of them. One of them was to Moore there in the first quarter, 24-yard gain where he's kind of rolling out of the pocket and just zips a pass right to him. And then there was the 21-yarder to Livingston that you talked about there in the third quarter. So as far as Arch goes, I mean, this was probably his most efficient game for sure. I would probably call it his best game of the season so far.
I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah.
Under the circumstances of what this game means, where Texas was in their season, the defense they were facing, I don't think it's close.
No, not at all. But I mean, and we could say it was the best game for a lot of folks too. I mean, Quintravion Wisner coming back into the fold, coming off his injury. He played last week and just couldn't get anything going against Florida. Now against Oklahoma, he almost got Texas's first 100-yard game of the season, which is weird to say this late in the year. But anyway, 22 carries, 94 yards. Roger, what did you see differently out of Wisner that allowed him to do this?
You know where I'm going with this. The 5 guys up front.
I do.
I mean, you can be a great running back.
Sure.
If there's nowhere to run, then you're pretty limited, and vice versa. You can be a great offensive line if you don't have a running back behind you. But that was a case where he looked a little quicker. He looked a little more confident than he did in Florida. But that offensive line looked so much better. Maybe Florida's front was just that much better than OU on that day in the swamp with all that emotion in the stadium compared to Saturday at Oklahoma. Maybe they played with a different kind of chip on their shoulder. They were certainly challenged all week and heard about how much this offensive line has struggled. Whatever the reason is, there were holes, there were cutback lanes, there was pile pushing. In other words, maybe Wisner didn't get touched until he's already 3 yards past the line of scrimmage. So it's a gain of 3, but it's because of that rather than a loss of 2. Sark still talked about too many negative plays offensively, and that really puts him in handcuffs when you lose 4 or 5 yards on first down. And I think one drive they had 2 negative plays. I think Billy, that's one of the more underrated and under-noticed stats is the tackles for losses, because we get wrapped up in sacks where you're typically not going to have that many. Maybe occasionally there's going to be a game. And obviously turnovers is a big deal, but you're typically not going to have that many. But you can have a lot of TFLs and really throw an offense off rhythm. And Texas's defense did it. Oklahoma did it to Texas. Double-figure times, but the Longhorns were able to overcome a lot of those.
12 tackles for loss for the Sooners. That's a lot.
Yeah, and Sark, I'm sure Sark says that's way too many for Texas's offense.
Absolutely. But and to Texas's credit, those 12 tackles for loss set them back 40 yards. So still, that's a lot. That's almost half the field, right? Texas, on the flip side, they had 7 tackles for loss, but they set Oklahoma back 35 yards on those. So those are just sort of bigger plays for the Texas defense to stop Mateer and that Oklahoma offense. And Roger, I got to say, as much as our fan base probably doesn't want to give John Mateer his flowers for pushing through this game, dude had hand surgery. He had throwing hand surgery 17 days before this game. And he came out and played the whole thing. And, at times he looked like he just had hand surgery. He had 3 interceptions, but there were times where John Mateer looked pretty good. Yeah,
and well, to me, Mateer's tough, and he showed it, and he didn't back down. But that's where, if you're wondering if he was just gutting it through, okay, was that still their best option over Michael Hawkins? Clearly, they thought it was. Ben Arbuckle thought that it was their offensive coordinator. But he was fearless. He didn't kind of cower when the hits were coming, especially when they ran a lot of quarterback runs that were called runs, not off-scheduled runs. But, he did have some misses. The worst miss was an inexplicable throw that ended up in a Malik Muhammad interception, because it was like a gust of wind took it, because his receivers, I think it was Deion Burks, going one way, and he threw it totally to the Texas sideline side the other way. It's like the golf equivalent would be he just hooked it. and Muhammad had to be shocked, because the receiver was open, and we could see it up top. What he saw, he just misfired.
Yeah, and then obviously Malik Muhammad says, "Thank you very much. I'll take
No doubt.
that interception." And he ended up being named the SEC Defensive Player of the Week.
I think it was
Defensive Player of the Week for his 2 interceptions against the Sooners. So good on him. And Niblett, which we'll talk about him later. He was a Special Teams Player of the Week. And they had another guy too.
Colin
Simmons, defensive,
Yeah, on the defensive line.
2.5 sacks for Colin Simmons. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. Steve Sarkisian talked about just kind of the performance, how his team is maturing, since losing to Florida and kind of dealing with that sort of adversity. So let's hear from Sark, and then we'll get into more of that here in a second. So here's Steve.
All in all, it was a really good game for our guys, and it started throughout the week. I thought we had a great sense of urgency in practice. I thought we were very intentional in our practice habits, and I thought we went into the game and matured as the game went on. And early on, like I said, it wasn't very pretty, but I thought we showed a lot of maturity and mental toughness and resolve, and then ultimately imposing our will as the game went on. So fantastic game for us that way. And now we got to show more maturity. Now, who are we going to be when we played the way we wanted to play? And that's the challenge that we posed to the team this morning. That this is the sign of a team that's mature. Of do we get right back to those same habits that we had last week, with the intent, with the sense of urgency, making every rep count in practice, and then playing a brand and a style of football that we're very proud of, which is a physical one.
I had our mics turned down. Anyway, so you heard from Steve there. There's one way to play when you have a chip on your shoulder, when you're coming off of a big loss, and you want to prove everybody wrong, right? So now they kind of have to do the flip side of that and play after they've played a tremendous game, at least a tremendous half anyway. They beat a big time opponent in a big time game. So now it's about carrying that sort of, he refers to it as rat poison. Everybody telling you you're doing so well, but it's just one of those things where you want this team to just continue that sort of sense of urgency even after a big win.
Yeah, and maturity is the word he keeps using, because you're exactly right. They can't believe everything on the plus, just like they didn't have to worry about what was said on the negative as long as they were taking care of their business. So, they're a much bigger favorite against a Kentucky team that's 2-3, all 3 of the losses in the SEC. Kind of an odd schedule. They played more SEC games than non-conference games. They're coming off a bye. It is at home where they played Ole Miss tough. And so, Sark's going to set them up to expect the toughest game they've had all season, regardless of the opponent. So, that's the key to any drill is when you're playing well, not to, put it on cruise control and say, okay, we've got things figured out. And when you're not playing well, how can you get things turned around right and then carry that same kind of attitude, momentum, confidence, whatever you want to call it, so you're not on that roller coaster as he has talked about with the way you're playing. I do want to clarify, Niblett was Special Teams Player of the Week.
He was, okay.
I'm sorry. Malik Muhammad was Defensive Player of the Week. Niblett was co-Special Teams. Colin Simmons was Defensive Lineman of the Week. They give out a lot of honors, and sometimes more than one to the same spot. But anyway,
just handed them out there at the SEC
This is a much different test for Texas. They're going into a place they've never been.
Right.
Kentucky's going to be fired up to have Texas come to Lexington, and we know they're capable, and we'll see what they don't stop the run very well through 5 games, over 150 yards. So if Texas did, in fact, figure something out in the run game, you would think they can exploit that even more on Saturday. And you know what they say about defense and run game traveling makes life a lot easier for number 16 on offense.
It does. And that game's going to be a 6 p.m. start there at Kroger Field in Lexington, Kentucky. I believe it's an ESPN game.
Correct.
So you'll be able to see them on the big network on Saturday, which is also my birthday. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Sidebar. But it's interesting. You talk about the run game, Roger. C.J. Baxter's been on the shelf for a few weeks with a hamstring injury. We're not really going to know his status until that initial injury report comes out on Wednesday. But man, it would be great if Texas could get him back into the fold and at least take a little bit of weight off Weiser's shoulders. But to get Baxter back in the flow of things before they really need him come later in the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And I don't know. I just don't know how realistic it's going to be because he hasn't even been listed as anything other than doubtful and out these last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And Sark talked about trying to get James Simon a little bit more involved in the run game. He got a couple of touches, didn't go so well. Jared Gibson, I think maybe one touch, didn't go so well. Even Ryan Niblett is lined up in the backfield. They use him in that screen game as well. But yeah, you can't. I mean, Weiser says he got stronger as the game went, but you don't want him to have to carry it 25 times.
Right.
Kind of gone are the olden days where, student body right, student body left with the same running back for 30 carries. So, yeah, they could use some more depth and more proven depth in the backfield.
Yeah, so hopefully he's able to get back on the field sometime soon anyway. Just some quick numbers to wrap up this portion of Horns Report here. 302 yards of offense for the Longhorns, 258 for the Sooners. That includes 136 on the ground for Texas and 48 for Oklahoma. So, this Texas defense still doing their thing, stopping the run, which, obviously they're going to have to keep doing. Penalties, they cut down on the penalties. For the first time this season, they didn't have at least 7. I think 7 was the low watermark previously. They only had 4 against the Sooners, 4 for 31 yards. A lot of those came in the first half. They were able to clean up in the second half. So good on the Longhorns for cleaning that up because that's been a huge problem for them. 2 for 2 in the red zone and 5 sacks. That was another thing that they've been working on, trying to get pressure on the quarterback. They sacked Mateer 5 times with 7 tackles for loss. So just much better performance all around for the Longhorns against Oklahoma.
Yeah, the one thing Sark talked about on Monday is they want to start faster, especially on offense. They did only score 1 offensive touchdown, the DeAndre Moore touchdown pass from Arch Manning, and then they got the punt return. So they did have scoring chances. In fact, after they punted the first 2 times, every drive ended either in a kneel down at the end of the half, field goal attempt, miss or make, or the touchdown. So they were putting themselves in position, but they want to turn 23 into 33 and start scoring more touchdowns rather than trotting Mason Shipley out there. And twice he was 55 and 56. So Sark said he thinks he has that range, so therefore that may have changed some of his thought process. But in this day and age of football, man, you settle for field goals. You just they couldn't get off that 1-score lead until Niblett ran the punt back.
Until he had the punt,
for that reason.
Yeah, and you bring up Mason Shipley, 3 for 5 on kicks, missed from 55 and 56. He dang near made the 55-yarder. That one clang off the inside of the upright and just bounced the wrong way. The 56-yarder, he just hit a little fat, but made 3 other kicks. He's a great kicker. He proved that at Texas State. He hit a 60-yarder against Sam Houston when he was with the Bobcats. So, he's got that kind of range. But like we've been saying, you'd rather have 6 or 7 instead of 3. But, kickers are players too, right? They got to get on the field.
Well, and he said he trotted him out there for the 56 because of the way the 55 went. He had the leg, it was hooking, it just didn't hook enough.
Yeah.
But you put yourself in a tough spot where you think you get some momentum.
Sure.
And they did that with one of the picks, and then you miss a field goal, and all of a sudden, not only do you not score, you're giving up some pretty. I think on that one exchange, it was about even from where Mateer threw the pick to Texas gave it back to him on the missed field goal.
Yeah. Yep. So it's something to keep an eye on moving forward. Now I want to talk about Ryan Niblett, kind of in depth here, Roger. Sarkisian at his press conference kind of opened the door on kind of Niblett's career so far at the press conference. It's something I wrote a story about on KXAN.com, how, a lot of these younger players, they get all these stars from recruiting services and they get hyped up, like this guy's gonna be the next big thing. And so like the younger players get in their head that they want to start when they're true freshmen or, early in their career. And sometimes they just don't factor in to a team's plan immediately. And so now you have the transfer portal era. Guys take off. They try to find the path of least resistance to go get some early playing time. Ryan Niblett could have potentially taken that route. And Steve Sarkisian said that he had thought about transferring, and Steve just basically said that I wouldn't let this guy leave. I re-recruited him. I talked him into staying, and it's one of those things where now you see the kind of success a guy like Ryan is having. He has that punt return. He's a great special teams player. He factors in the backfield and receiving core on offense. They had him play some defensive back during the spring, so he's just like this Swiss Army knife guy who you can plug and play pretty much anywhere. It is pretty neat to see a guy like this, Roger, stick around and see the fruits of his labor.
Yeah, he told us on the radio after the game that exact thing. He was ready to transfer, and Sark talked him out of it. He's a Houston kid, and you're right. These guys all. That's why I've kind of flipped my thing on Sunday. I used to say, man, that's just so over the top, and do you really need it? And then I started thinking, man, once they get to campus, they are no longer anything more than one of 85 on scholarship and 100 plus in the building, and it didn't matter what they did. So have your moment and then realize that everything's going to change when you get there, and you're just a guy that's gotten all the attention, all the excitement when they commit, all the excitement when they sign, and then they get on campus and they wonder, okay, is there a place for me, or how long am I going to have to wait? I've never had to do that before in my career. So yeah, a guy that's stuck it out. It's easy now to jump in the portal. You can do it. You can see what's out there money-wise as well. And obviously, Sark has talked all season about unlocking that return game and getting some. It was a first punt return for a touchdown in 12 years in that ball game since Dejae Johnson, the Hendrickson High product.
That's a pretty crazy stat. I didn't know it was 12 years. Man.
Yeah, so just another weapon, and Sark likes to talk about how fast his team is. Yeah. And Niblett's certainly one of the guys that makes him fast.
And if you look, you talk about the punt return. From where our photogs were at on field level, it's kind of tough to see sort of that left return kind of wall they had set up down that allowed Niblett to go down the sideline. You look at the top from like a press booth or something, or from the over the top camera, man, that kick return, that punt return was set up perfectly.
Yeah, it was great, and the margin wasn't much because it was just an alley. Yeah, and obviously you've got that tackler that never misses a tackle called the sideline that he had to contend with. Yeah. But there were no Sooners there close enough to even to get a hand on him to shove him out of bounds, and so it was well set up. And I know for Jeff Banks, the tight ends and special teams coach, man, that must be a dream to see something like that actually work. It's one thing to have an offensive play work where you rep it, and you get a lot of for those, you get a few. And for that one to work in that moment, in that game, was no doubt something special for that team.
Nope. It's the true embodiment of you love it when a plan comes together, right? So Sarkisian talked about Niblett's kind of importance to the culture of the team, and just sort of the importance of this touchdown during his press conference. So let's hear from Steve talk about Ryan Niblett here.
What is it about Ryan Niblett that allowed him to grow so much when you didn't know you were trying to put him at receiver and at running back and everything? How did he stay so engaged through this, and what kind of role does he have?
Yeah, ton of credit to Ryan. But like a lot of these guys, they all, when they get here, they all want to be that freshman that's starting. And they've all got a bunch of stars, and they've all been the best players in the Little League and in high school and all that. And you get here and you get in our locker room, they're all really good players. And, he was a really kind of versatile player in high school. He played running back, he played wildcat quarterback, he played receiver. And so when we got him here, it was like, we just got to try to figure out what is his role. And he went from receiver to running back to defense in spring, back to receiver. Now he's dueling running back and receiver. He's returning punts. He's returning kickoffs. He's an elite special teams player on kickoff coverage. He's probably the best kickoff cover guy we have. But I think it's the selfless nature that he has. He's an awesome teammate. And I credit him because there was moments when he was thinking about leaving this place. And I didn't let him leave. You know, I fought to keep him here because of, one, the player that he is, but two, I think he's a glue guy when it comes to our culture. And, you know, as I tell you, culture wins. You know, as much as talented people matter, culture matters more. And, you know, he's one of those guys that is true to our culture. And for him to have some of the success he's having this year is really cool to see for him, but also for other players on our team. Some of these young freshmen we're talking about, that it's not always about, are you a frontline starter on offense or defense? Can you find a way and find a role on special teams and then grow into that role?
So yeah, a lot of good stuff there from Steve, especially the culture aspect. I kind of think that gets overlooked in this day of age. Really, you know, he kind of took a page out of Jay Billis's book, the ESPN college basketball analyst, about Niblett being a glue guy when it comes to kind of holding this team together and embodying that culture. I just thought that was an interesting point for Steve to make there, Roger.
Yeah, and for guys to hang in there, you know.
Yeah.
Wait their turn, be patient, not settle on just jumping ship, and then finding the role. And when we visited with Niblett on the postgame show, that's what he said. I didn't know my place. And finally, that place was figured out, and you know, heroes are made in that Texas OU game.
Absolutely.
And Niblett's name will always be there when you're talking about this series and big plays. And you wonder now what that maybe unlocks going forward. A guy that can really be explosive, because this offense still is not that explosive against good defenses.
Sure.
So a special teams play here and there can make things a lot easier.
Yeah, and if we're talking about explosive plays, like let's just kind of delve into that a little bit. Let's see big plays here. They only had 5 explosives, like at least according to the stat sheet here. 3 in the pass game, 2 in the rush game, and obviously, if you want to count the special teams play, we'll call it 6. Is there a way, Roger, you think they can get more of these explosive plays? I mean, as you know, if Arch isn't gonna, you know, launch the ball down the field a bunch, if he's gonna, you know, play into more of the short passing game, I mean, kind of what is the avenue to get these explosives, do you think?
Well, I don't think Sark's given up on the deep ball at all.
Right.
And if the more the running game works, the more I think we're going to see shot plays.
Right.
And I think that may have been a product of that Oklahoma defense, that Oklahoma front, and the way things were going. But there's no way he's going to abandon that. So I think that's one way. Mm-hmm. The run game, Trey Wisner busted off the 37-yarder. The other one was Arch on the zone read to pretty much ice the game when he ran for 29 yards. But I think the definition is 10-yard runs and 15-yard pass plays.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what they view as explosive plays. I mean, 7-yard runs are great for this offense and the way things have gone, and 12-yard pass plays are great, so they don't fall into that criteria, but that certainly helps you drive. But yeah, I think we're going to see plenty of chances.
Sure.
You know, they throw the screen, you miss one tackle, you break one tackle, and you got an explosive play, and maybe you take it to the house. So I think they're coming still.
Yeah. I think you're right. All right. Well, are about at time now, so we'll end it here with this episode of the Horns Report. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again soon.